Hello and welcome back to Building. You're about to listen to an episode we recorded with Mike Jevons. Mike is somebody that Brendan and I worked with pretty closely at Era during our time there. Mike is a copywriter in the SEO team at Era. But we had him on the podcast to talk all things YouTube, as Mike has over 140,000 subscribers, and there was no one better within our network to teach us about the world of growing when it comes to video content.
What is it that makes you a successful kind of YouTuber?
Definitely not production value, because my production value is basically zero. So it's just me standing with a camera or my phone sometimes and just sort of pressing record and seeing what happens. But I think it's more the fact that it's really attention grabbing what I do. So if you saw a video that said, oh, I ate nothing but McDonald's for a week, you're going to think, I want to kind of see what happens there. You just need to use what you have and build on what is working. And if that means you might have to rework some of your existing copies somewhere to fit with that, it will be beneficial because it will create that seamless experience. So regardless of how your audience and future audiences find you and interact with you, they will think, yeah, that is X brand. I know what they stand for, what I need to do with them to solve pain point Y. As a writer, looking at AI as a something that's going to steal my job, I don't necessarily have that worry because AI doesn't have, at least yet, the capability to recreate what a human can do. The worry, I guess, comes from people above me that may potentially see AI as a way to save money but not understand that the quality of the copy isn't up to scratch, and the fact that AI can tell porcupines if it doesn't quite understand something.
Hello, welcome to episode number 25, and today's date is the 25th of October 2023. This is Building, and Building charts our journey to starting and scaling 1225, a growth marketing agency based in Northampton. As ever, I'm joined by my co-founder and co-host, Harry. Hi, Harry. You all right?
Yeah, not too bad. Intro number 2, as Brennan fast-tracked us into the future. 2024 to start with, but yeah, I'm doing well.
Mate, it's the pressure of setting up these, especially when we've got a guest watching the intro before we introduce them. So, yeah, the pressure got to me. I said 2024, but we've started again. And yeah, I think that leads us nicely into the fact we're joined today by another very special guest, Mike Jevons, who we know, having worked with Mike at Era in our previous roles. Mike is a copywriter by trade, but we've got him on the podcast today to talk YouTube and creating video content. I will throw some stats at you, so I'm going to look at my show notes whilst I reel off this impressive roll call of stats. Mike has 141,000 subscribers on his YouTube channels, and he's posted almost 1,000 videos to date so far. His content, which is mainly food challenge based, I'd recommend anyone watches them because some of them are absolutely hilarious. My personal favourite is his KFC challenge, where he ate KFC for a week, and his rant outside a KFC drive-through is stuff of legends. But he's also kind of developed this on further as well, appearing in food documentaries on the likes of Channel 5. And as 1225, we are all about audience first content as well. A lot of Mike's content on his YouTube channels is actually audience first content as well. Product reviews, unboxing, unveilings. So very interesting person to chat to. Mike, how are you?
I'm very good, thank you. Thank you very much for having me on. And I didn't realise until you just said it that I've nearly done 1,000 videos. That just seems like a monumental waste of my time.
So, yeah, I mean, let's start at the very beginning. Video number 1, how long have you been creating videos for?
Oof. Since before YouTube, it feels like at this rate. So I started back when there was a craze online of making angry reviews. I'm not sure if you've ever heard of the likes of the Angry Video Game Nerd, where he would just rant about old video games from like the NES and the Mega Drive era. And I thought, I could do that, but how can I do it different? So I I started doing a show where I reviewed bad sequels to movies. I called it Shameful Sequels. SS for short, but that's a terrible so we'll skip on from that. So yeah, I started Shameful Sequels, and I think the first movie I ever reviewed on the show was the second or third Starship Troopers movie, which, yeah, a pile of garbage as you might expect. The first one's like a cult classic, but yeah, they get progressively worse as they go on. But so I started and then sort of built from there, sort of getting gradually better. Then I was picked up by an aggregate website and started sort of making weekly video reviews on a website called Blip, was the one that hosted it, because basically while YouTube has sort of the copyright bots that will strike you down if you sort of host other people's copyrighted content, Blip didn't do that. So it was kind of the Wild West of video content at the time. And slowly the honeymoon period of Blip died. So everyone started having to slowly migrate across to YouTube at the time. And as I mentioned, with YouTube being so happy to just close channels down if you use other people's content, I needed to come up with new sort of video ideas that didn't rely on reviewing other people's media and sort of risk having the whole thing shut down. So I started sort of doing, like you mentioned, some unboxing videos and reviewing infomercial products. There's not quite as much of the copyright strike bots around YouTube when it comes to like advertising and reviewing other people's infomercials and things like that. So I managed to get away with quite a lot doing that. But I gradually started to run out of infomercials to review as well. So like, well, what can I do now? I know, let's review diets. So I thought, let's put my body through the paces and try different weeks of eating or trying a different lifestyle. So the very first week on I did was a week on Iceland, frozen foods. So that takes me back. That was 2014. So yeah, I've been nearly doing week-ons for a decade, which is making me feel incredibly old.
Yeah, I mean, it's these week-on challenges that really... That's where I started watching you on YouTube. But I've mentioned the KFC. So you've gone from the realms of diets that sound really appealing to someone like me who likes their junk food. But when you're sitting there trying to eat 5,000 calories of Domino's pizza in an evening, what you have to eat is absolutely incredible. At the same time, you're actually going the other end of the scale with these challenges. You did like the war rations challenge, I think, at one time as well, and you were hardly eating anything, and the pain and the stress that you were portraying was equally like measurable there as well. So what made you come up with that kind of a week-on challenge?
So the original, well, partly it was to do with how can I not get a copyright strike on YouTube. So basically it's 100% my own content that I'm uploading. So no one has any ownership over that other than me. So, hands off. But another reason was in 2014, my now wife and I were going to get married. So I was a big guy back then. I thought, how can I both combine what I do on YouTube with wanting to lose some weight? So let's get some fad diets, some really crazy, insane ways of losing weight, and see if I can get into an ideal sort of place where I'm happy to sort of walk down the aisle, and get some wedding photos taken that I'm not a little bit embarrassed to look at in the future. So yeah, I managed to combine these two, do some really stupid diets that I don't recommend anyone does, like the cabbage soup diet, where at least 2 meals a day is cabbage soup. And believe me, that nearly cost me my future marriage at that point. Things did not smell good. And I'd lose a stone in a week diet where it was a lot of melon and grapefruit and chicken breasts and broccoli. That was horrible. So yeah, I don't recommend like 99% of the stuff I do, to be honest.
This might sound a bit like as a backhanded compliment or something, but in terms of your engagement and the number of subscribers watching your videos, do you think that comes from just the idea and the format of your videos, or is it, production value? What is it that makes you a successful kind of YouTuber?
Definitely not production value, because my production value is basically zero. So it's just me standing with a camera or my phone sometimes and just sort of pressing record and seeing what happens. But I think it's more the fact that it's really attention grabbing what I do. So if you saw a video that said, "Oh, I ate nothing but McDonald's for a week," you're going to think, "I want to kind of see what happens there." Or, can I eat 10,000 calories worth of McDonald's in a day? It's Domino's in a day. Just really stupid stuff that draws you in, and you kind of want to see if this guy's going to die or get seriously ill at the end of this video. Thankfully, that hasn't happened yet, but yet being the key word there.
Yeah. And you mentioned you actually started all of this kind of around weight loss and trying to lose a few pounds, and then towards the back end, you're like almost piling as much food as you possibly can down your gob. Like, is that just a natural evolution of the ideas that you had?
I would say so. Once, like, diets encompass a wide spectrum of things. A lot of them, yes, are weight loss, but others are lifestyle choices. Like I did one recently which was inspired by a video I saw on Lad Bible, where a guy eats nothing but chicken nuggets. Not by choice, he just can't stomach eating anything else. So I thought, okay, let's see how that sort of goes. And yeah, not pleasant. Again, it was a very surprisingly smelly week on, not to go into too much, TMI. Sort of. But it's you kind of have to do a balance to make sure, like the fast food ones are loads of fun. I love fast food. That's why I got into the state I did before I started doing a week on. But so long as you approach things fairly subjectively and don't sort of try and drop any biases. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff out there that's ripe for the picking.
Fair. And what do you think the main attribute is to you being able to grow your kind of your fan base, we'll call it, your subscribers to 140,000? Like, is it consistency, just recording each and every week, or what is it?
Maybe 5-6 years ago, I would have definitely said consistency. So if you had a regular schedule that you'd stick to, YouTube's algorithms liked that a lot. So it would sort of push you up into people's sort of subscription feeds and recommendations and things like that. But it seems that it's moving away from that now to engagement and watch time. So you'll see a lot more videos these days are 1 hour plus. There's a YouTube channel, a guy makes videos that are 24 hours long, edited videos, not just a stream, but like actually edited videos of him reviewing something or talking about something, and people watch it, and he's got 1 million subscribers. So today, if you can dedicate the time to long videos, and you can also monetize that, the longer it is, the more ads you can put in it as well. So, you got someone like Mr. Beast who's pulling in 200 million views, and there's a lot of money to be made if you've got the audience, which you need the time to be able to do. And obviously, I spend a lot of my time writing as well, so it's a balancing act. I could possibly have more if I could have more time to dedicate towards making that sort of really long form content these days. But yeah, it's kind of definitely, what do I enjoy doing more? Is it the writing or the YouTube? And at the minute, it is the writing, but still there is that YouTube love there, so that's why I continue to do that, but it's more of a hobby these days.
Fair. It's interesting that it almost goes against assumptions that would make us marketers. We've seen like the explosion in growth in things like TikTok, quick snappy 30-second videos, but actually then on a different channel, it's like long form videos seems to be more prevalent, getting pushed out. Any reason for the difference in your mind?
Like, this is probably going to age me a little bit, but I don't know if it's a generational thing now. Like with TikTok, Gen Zers, lap that up. And as you say, it's short content. You can scroll through 40 videos in the time it'll take to watch one of my YouTube videos, something like that. And it's just old granddad me, just can't move with the times. I'm so far refused to really engage too much with TikTok because it's yet another platform that I have to create content for and don't particularly have the time for, unfortunately.
Fair. We'll come on to your day job and YouTube in a bit, but I think firstly, anyone that potentially meets you, and this is an assumption, so tell me I'm completely wrong about you, Mike, but obviously I worked with you closely for a couple of years at Era. To me, you've always seemed relatively introverted. So why YouTube? Why videos? Why broadcast yourself to 140,000 people each week?
That's a good question, Brendan, and I don't really know the answer. It fits, at the time when I started YouTube, it fit with the creativity that I sort of had and wanted to get out. I tend to like to let my work speak for itself. I've done sort of conventions and things like that where I've sort of met people who've watched the videos, and I always sort of, and so, this is going to sound really egotistical, occasionally someone will sort of say, "Hey Mike, like your videos, thanks," and I'm like, "Thanks." And so I don't feel like I'm accustomed to that kind of attention like in person, but because it's basically most of my video is just me alone or with maybe one or two other people, not an audience of 20,000 people in front of me. And that makes it a lot easier. Like, there's that disconnect from the audience. Like, there's every chance that 1 million people might watch one of these videos. And that's fine. That feels okay. But if those people were in the room with me, I wouldn't be able to do it. I would clam up. I would stumble over my words. I would probably leave the room and never return.
Fair. I feel that because obviously since starting a business, I've become a lot more active on LinkedIn, and it was always that dread of like, oh, I've got this post to put on. I don't want all my, followers like, criticizing me and stuff. It was just those feelings of like, oh, am I going to press the button? Am I going to do this? But gradually that goes away. Is it just as simple as time, just learning from the analytics and seeing what works, what doesn't work, that you form the kind of route that you go when you go on a creative journey?
I think so, yeah. With when you're putting content out there online, it's, because that audience is on the other side of a screen, it is much easier for them to tell you exactly what they think, whether that's good or bad. Whereas if they were in the room, they might, a nice polite applause and then leave and, talk about how bad it was later on. But when it's in the YouTube comment section or reply to a tweet or an X or whatever they're called these days, people will tell you exactly what they think, even if it's the meanest thing that just pops into their head about your family, about the way you look, about anything it could be. It's just, you have to kind of look past the trolls, as it were. Sometimes there'll be an air of truth in what they're saying, but it's the way they say it is perhaps not the nicest. But all forms of criticism should be welcomed. And it's the only way you're going to grow, improve your content, make sure you don't repeat mistakes. So it's definitely worth listening to, but not taking too close to heart, I suppose.
That's really interesting and taking a step there. And I suppose the kind of other area about you that I want to kind of delve into, if that's okay, is this isn't your day job, being a YouTube star, and you're still successful with it. You're still recording loads of videos. I've noticed you put a post saying you're prioritizing the copy at this stage. That's why the videos are taking a backseat in recent months. How are you finding that kind of merging of like the day job and the side gig, the side hustle, if you will?
It's it's something that I've got used to. I don't have kids or anything like that, so I managed to have time in the evenings to be able to dedicate to these additional pursuits. So I write full time for Era, but also in the evenings, like you say, I've got YouTube. I also write books. I write books pseudonymously as well. I also you have YouTube, so I've got fingers in a lot of pies, but I've managed to have struck this really sweet spot where I can do most of what I want to do and not feel, at least, touch wood, any kind of burnout, any kind of creative burnout. I've got so many kind of ideas in my head for things that I want to do that it's given me the incentive, the drive to get them out there. Because it would be easy to just, after work, sit on the PlayStation for a couple of hours, make dinner, go to bed, watch a film. But then I always feel guilty doing something like that. It's like, I could have spent that time doing something. Like, I could have been creative. I could have achieved something. My wife has a go at me for this, but I'm never satisfied with what I've done. I'm always, what can I do now? It's like, that's done. What's next? So yeah, it's quite a frustrating mindset to have, because it's like never happy. But I just kind of want to, always strive for bigger and better and new things.
Fair. With that, I think that leads to my final question in this segment. What would you say your proudest kind of moment has been on your YouTube journey? Is it a particular video? Is it a run of videos? Is it just where you're at now? Like, what makes you proud?
Getting that plaque when I passed 100,000 subs was a really nice moment. It's on the wall up there. So it's always a thing that's like, I can look up at that and remember that I have achieved stuff. So I don't need to necessarily beat myself up about it. It's just the way my mind seems to work. But another really key moment was in 2014, I think it was. I was on that website that I mentioned earlier, the aggregate website, and we managed to crowdfund a movie called Nerd Quest, which I wrote and directed and edited. So I was basically a jack of all trades on that. And that it's very rough around the edges, very rough. It wasn't even filmed in HD, and this is 2014. It's hardly the Stone Age, but it might as well have been filmed on a potato. But it's funny. It was a great time making it. It was a lot of work, but the end product is a film that I can sort of say, yeah, I did that, and it's a good feeling to do that. But again, my mindset says, let's go and do another one. Amazing.
And I must say, throughout my time at Area as well, working with you, some of the creative ideas that you came up with from a copywriting angle, from, thinking about content in different ways, different angles, pushing that out as well, proposing it to clients, that was a real X factor. And I think that's something the industry needs to continue to strive for, those kind of creative X factor ideas and pushing it out. So I think this YouTube obviously helps you do that. So that's a lot of questions about you and your journey on YouTube. And as with these kind of guest appearance podcasts that we're doing currently, they're kind of dual purpose for us. We also want to learn from you as well. So Harry, I'll let you kind of lead this next section of questioning. So because you're our kind of face of TikTok and video content, if you will. So over to you for some questions, Harry.
Yeah, so like I said, from one influencer to another, Mike, by 5 followers. One question I do have actually is, before we move on to the kind of writing piece, is, and I kind of learned this from the last episode we did with Matt as well, so quite interested. We at the minute are actively trying to grow this podcast, right? And the way that we're doing that at the moment is, I'd say, via 2 ways. So consistency of upload, bar this week, this is the first week in 25 weeks, I think, that we haven't uploaded on a Tuesday. We uploaded on a Wednesday instead. But we have that kind of consistency element. And we're also having guests on, right? So we have that cross-pollination, if you like, of being able to post out from different guests and whatnot. But one of the things that we're not doing is really spending time in the analytics, looking at retention rates, looking at what is performing well versus what is not performing well. And at the minute, acting on kind of gut feel. In your experience, in the early stages, is that the right thing to do? Or should we be spending more time within the analytics, understanding what is and isn't working?
I think it is worth looking at the numbers. Doing that will give you some answers. If you've got if there's a drop off at what's on sort of specific point in an episode, then you could sort of scrub to that. What did we say? What did we do at that point? If you've got a lot of people starting a video or a podcast and then dropping off after a couple of minutes, is the intro too long?
Probably if I'm doing them.
I wasn't going to say anything, Brendan. So it's worth paying attention. If you've got if the data's there, use it. Like, it's there for a reason. So yeah, use what you have to your advantage, basically.
Okay. Yeah, I think that is something that we need to do. I think our confession for the podcast is that I've probably looked at the analytics twice in terms of like on an actual video. Like, we definitely obviously keep a track of the obvious stuff, like how many people are watching, how many people are viewing, like what the subscriber counts. But beyond that, we haven't really spent any time in it. And I do think that is something that, off the back of this episode, is something that we need to be doing. All right, let's move the conversation on to what sounds like your love and passion at the minute, which is writing. And I actually want to pick up the conversation from kind of insight for people listening, where we left off yesterday. So, Mike, obviously you, Brendan, and I spoke yesterday around this push towards audience first content and what that means for copywriters. And I think there is a very unique shift going on, especially in the world of SEO at the moment, whereby the job was very much, maybe 5 years ago, or not even that, maybe 2 years ago, here are some keywords. Please make sure these keywords are in a piece of copy. And then you would go and write that copy, to now where like the requirements of a copywriter such as yourself are much more focused on the user. And we were speaking yesterday around the importance of tone of voice. And that's really sat with me as to actually, I think that is the thing. And people aren't spending enough time on tone of voice. So could you just, for every listening, just give a bit of a background as to what, I guess, first of all, what tone of voice is for you, and then how that translates into strong audience first content?
So tone of voice is how you, I guess, portray yourself in the words that you use. Do you want to talk to your audience in a conversational way? Do you want to be in a formal way? Do you want to be sarcastic? Do you want to be rude? Do you want to be direct? Do you want to be indirect? It's how you communicate your message, and it needs to be consistent. If you're using a sassy tone of voice on Facebook, on X, that needs to kind of come over to your website copy as well, or the copy you use in your physical store, if that's what you've got, or on your app. Just basically like the whole, is it omni-channel experience, to use a marketing lingo buzzword. So you just have to make it so that it's appropriate for your audience. If you were trying to reach Gen Zers and you were using formal language, that's not going to work. But at the same time, you don't want to sort of use words like fire, and I can't even think of another Gen Z word. That's how on Gen Z I am. But it's just, consistency is key, and making sure that you're getting your message across in a way that will land and resonate with them and want them to continue engaging with you.
And if you are, let's say, a business owner or a website manager, marketing manager listening to this, and that resonates, which I think it will. Like, I think when you said that to us yesterday, like I said, I've sat with that for 24 hours now, and it's something that I am picking up more and more. In fact, you actually mentioned what was going to be one of my questions around the fact that it probably translates to everything that you're producing. So yes, we could talk about it in a copywriting perspective, but that will translate through to your video content, to your social content, to probably even the way that somebody on the phone from, say, customer service speaks to a client, right? Like, it almost becomes part of the culture of a company. But when you say all of that, it can sound quite daunting. So if you were a marketing manager, a business owner, someone like that, who this resonates with, and if actually, you know what, that is something I want to spend time on, where would you start?
I would start with trying to work out where the audience is engaging with your content the most. If it's your website, then take a look at the copy there. If it's social media, how can we improve our engagement levels? How can we use, again, the data that we have to see what tweets worked? Do we know, are they called X's on there? I don't know. But anyway, I digress. Stupid Elon Musk. So anyway, you just need to use what you have and build on what is working. And if that means you might have to rework some of your existing copies somewhere to fit with that, it will be beneficial because it will create that seamless experience. So regardless of how your audience and future audiences find you and interact with you, they will think, yeah, that is X brand. I know what they stand for, what I need to do with them to solve pain point Y.
It's got me thinking, tone of voice, it shouldn't be actually governed by brands themselves, should it? It should be almost given to brands by the audience and worked up by the audience to have that tone of voice. Do you agree, or is that pie in the sky?
It's got a massive influence. Like, you could take someone like is it Innocent Smoothies, who have absolutely nailed tone of voice, and they have it across their website and social media and the advertisements and things like that. But who is Innocent's like ideal persona? Who is buying Innocence? And do they talk like that? I don't know, but whatever they have done, they are a case study for it works and why tone of voice is so important, because it gets engagement.
Yeah, I like I said, I think it's a key that we need to be playing on more. And Brendan, you and I have already spoken about, literally off the back of the call we had yesterday, Mike, we ended the call, Brendan and I jumped into another meeting straight away, which was like, okay, we have a client that would be a perfect fit for this, and a great way of building up like evidence of this working, i.e. just getting 2 pages written by yourself in like two contrasting tones of voice. And then testing that via ads, for example, to just see which one performs better. But also just going to some existing customers, because you should have a positive relationship with them, saying that we've written these 2 pieces. Can you just tell us which one would bring you to action more? Right. And I think that is something that many brands aren't doing. And if you're investing in SEO and you're using copywriters and investing in copywriters, you probably should be. So I think, yeah, you've really set us on a path of focusing on this more and hopefully producing better content as a result. So yeah, Brendan, we can report back on the efforts, should we say, and the successes of that on this podcast in a couple of weeks' time.
Exactly, and it's just kind of like showing Mike like our briefing, and it's kind of we've been through the process of copy briefing for a long time. The first thing Mike says about our tone of voice section was like, oh, it's just full of cliches, it's not that helpful. And it immediately opens up your eyes and you're like, oh yeah, okay, so how do we sort that out? And it's also the simple fact, you probably go to 100 brands and ask them for tone of voice guidelines alongside their brand guidelines. Have they got them combined into one document? I doubt it. Have they even got their own tone of voice guidelines? I'd say 95% of those brands will not have tone of voice guidelines at all as well. So it's a massive opportunity, and one that, we're definitely keen on exploring more, because I think it's a simple way to show a relentless focus on the customer experience.
Yeah, I agree. So we can't have a copywriter on the podcast without delving into the inevitable world of the machines and AI. And there's been a lot said by a lot of people on this over the last, probably let's just say from the start of 2023. And it's led to a lot of copywriters. Okay, I'll give you my take on it, Mike, and then you can tell me if this is true from your perspective. I would say a lot of copywriters have not seen AI as a threat. They've seen it as potentially a way of improving efficiencies and almost as a partner to the work that they're doing. But I'll class myself as this, as I'm not a copywriter, the outsiders to that have been asking questions of the inevitability of the machines, and is this going to overthrow the copywriters, etc., so that you almost have these 2 contrasting things of the people who are doing this day in, day out going, yes, we have a tool that can help us here, and people who aren't in the industry going, well, that's it, that it's done, move on. So where do you stand with the machines?
I think you've kind of nailed it there. As a writer, looking at AI as a something that's going to steal my job, I don't necessarily have that worry, because AI doesn't have, at least yet, the capability to recreate what a human can do. The worry, I guess, comes from people above me that may potentially see AI as a way to save money, but not understand that the quality of the copy isn't up to scratch. And the fact that AI can tell porcupines if it doesn't quite understand something. I asked ChatGPT to write me a review of my book Viral, which is ironically about robots taking over the world. And ChatGPT said it was a non-fiction book about how to create a viral video, which is just completely false. And where it got this from, I don't know. Did it take snippets from Amazon reviews or Goodreads, or did it just assume because it was called Viral, that's what it was going to be about? So until ChatGPT can, and other AI can do that, but you can rely on it not to make stuff up, and it can learn a tone of voice that isn't just flat and something that human audiences can sort of differentiate. Because if you read AI copy, unless it's maybe a couple of sentences or like a meta description, which they're really good at doing, very short, like tweets, things like that. If you asked it to write a blog post and you read that, something goes off in your head and you don't know what it is, but you think, that's not quite right. And audiences are not stupid. They will read that and they'll think, this is not for me. This doesn't feel like an expert's written this, and they won't engage with it. And they will go to one of your competitors where they have used a human writer and it resonates more with them, and they'll spend their money with them. So until it is good enough to sort of stand toe to toe with a human, and I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, that's when I'll really start to worry. But for now, I will just kick any robot that I see.
but then it likely probably just means that you move on to doing more of the things that you would want to be doing as a writer anyway, would be my guess. So all of the bits around formulating a paragraph, whatever it may be, yes, that is part of what you could offer, but I'm sure there is a huge factor of enjoyment and value in the consultancy side of things, right? So working with, say, agency owners like myself and Brendan to isolate down, okay, well, how can we make content better? How can we help clients improve their tone of voice guidelines? How can we improve the conversion rates of this piece of copy, right? You get to spend time on all these other things that aren't just the writing part. So I guess what you'd end up with is just a trajectory whereby, as the machines, so to speak, get better at understanding some of the bits that it's bad at now, decides, actually, you know what, we can interpret this book or this piece of copy, we don't need to make up lies. The role just shifts to be more consultancy focused as well, which again doesn't seem like a bad thing.
No, true, but for a writer, the most time-consuming part of the writing process isn't necessarily the research or the editing; it's the writing itself. So I might spend 4 or 5 hours on a blog post, whereas an AI can write it in 20 seconds. So that's, I think, where some of the fear comes from. I could effectively generate 100 blog posts in the time it would take me to write a few paragraphs. So that there is that sort of threat that we can produce the quantity, whereas I can potentially produce more of the quality, and it's finding a way to sort of balance the two, mesh the two. AI is a great tool for writers because you can come up with structures and topic titles and meta descriptions, topic suggestions, pull quotes from other blog posts to use and ebooks, things like that. So it's a great tool to do the sort of admin-y research side of things, but not necessarily the legwork.
Okay. Do you think AI allows writers to, you spoke about it just then, you said about balance. Do you think it tips the scales in favour of being more creative? It allows a writer more time to be creative and come up with content that is more audience first in nature, and therefore, can help drive that experience to greater depths?
Potentially, if you can give some of your more laborious, uncreative, boring stuff to AI, it does then free you up to be a little more adventurous, which again, then you can use AI to suggest those things as well. It's It is a difficult position to know what's coming in the future. Is it going to get to the stage where we can use it more reliably? I'm hoping not. I'm hoping it'll stay where it is so I can just use it as a tool as opposed to it taking more away from me. But it's a tough one. It is a tough one.
I like it as a question. And I think it is a question that, like I said, has been very much at the forefront of many people's minds since probably the start of this year. But I do think it can also become a distraction. If that's the question, we're always just trying to continue to answer is what's going to happen when this improves? What's going to happen when this improves? We're losing a lot of time in the short term that we could be focusing on improving processes, frameworks, delivery, whatever it may be. So, I think it's something that, Brennan, we need to be mindful of in the background, but definitely doesn't necessarily need to be the thing that we are permanently focused on in the short term.
Absolutely.
Cool. All right. Should we move towards concluding today's episode with a couple of final questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. Nice. I'll go with a couple. Then, Brendan, if you've got a couple, go for it as well. So first one is a classic question of if you could give us, as in Brendan and I, one piece of advice when it comes to growing the audience of this podcast, what would it be? It would be
try to do something that nobody else has done before, which is a lot easier said than done. If you said to me, okay, give me an idea as to what that could be, I couldn't tell you that. So it is a case of, I'm assuming you've done it, is watching other similar podcasts. What are they doing? What are they doing well? How can you do that, but better and slightly differently? How can you take ownership over something new? There's no point in trying to go viral with something, because if you think of the tens of thousands of hours of content uploaded to YouTube, probably every minute, it's about trying to stand out, but not try too hard to be the next big thing. So don't expect to explode, but if it's a gradual climb, then that's more than enough.
A question on that, Mike, I meant to ask this earlier, but it seems like obviously with 140,000 subscribers, we'll get there one day, Harry. You've got a really good community that seems to comment on the post, seem engaged, will come up oh, this is great, or talk about it. I went through it. The vast majority are very positive as well, which is quite interesting to see as well. Did you put any efforts into getting people to leave comments and stuff? Because me and Harry, obviously, each episode you have to say the standard, please like, share, subscribe, all the usual places, all of that. People get sick of that sort of stuff. But did you put any effort into community building?
Not a whole lot. I probably should do a lot more. I never say please like and subscribe at the start. I always maybe give it as an afterthought at the end of an episode, something like that. But it is recommended that you do it sort of throughout, just because people are going to scrub through the video. They won't watch the start, they won't watch the end, things like they're going to watch different points. So it is worth sort of peppering it in naturally as and when you can. Make a joke of it even. Don't sort of make it seem like you're begging people. That really puts people off. Not that you guys do that, but seeming desperate is a real way of sort of turning off an audience. But incentivizing them, what are they going to get out of subscribing or following you on LinkedIn? Are they going to get exclusive content, or are they going to get something that other people don't get? What can you do just to give them that little nudge just in the right direction that otherwise, would think, oh, well, I won't bother. I'll just wait for it to show up. What's going to tip them over to the place you want them to be?
And then I'm going to go with a final question, which is completely unrelated to everything else that we've spoken about, but it's a question that I heard on the podcast and we've copied and are now making it a bit of a guest tradition. So it's almost 2 p.m. on, what day of the week is it? Is it Wednesday? Yeah, it's a Wednesday. Almost 2 p.m. on a Wednesday. On a scale of 1 to 10, of 10 being the best day of your life, how would you rate your day?
Well, before I started the podcast, I would say maybe a 5. But now, after speaking to you guys, I would say maybe a 3.
Solid. Nice. That's the kind of impact you can expect if you work with 1225.
I was expecting it. Yeah, good technique. I like it. Absolutely.
Nice. Then the
Sorry.
serious, I guess, follow-up to that, which we've been using that a lot, which is, okay, so let's say it's a 5. What would take it to a 10?
Well, maybe a trip to Heathrow Airport, jump on a Virgin plane to Orlando. Maybe that would take it up to a 10.
Okay. And ending this call as soon as possible. Yeah, I like it. Nice. Brendan, anything final from you?
No, I think that's it. I could talk to Mike all the time about his journey to YouTube. It's mind-boggling. I literally spent like 2 hours researching, going through the YouTube channel. Just half the stuff I stumbled upon, I've never I didn't realize you've done this before. And I've been on that channel like loads over the past few months. I mean, I found myself on a Saturday night watching you like going through childbirth, essentially going through the pain, putting yourself through the pain of childbirth, and some of the food stuff. Like, the only advice I'd give to people, if you start watching Mike's YouTube channel, and I'd recommend it to anyone, make sure you eat before you watch him, because some of the stuff you eat, you're hungry 5 minutes in. So yeah, just wanted to say that.
Well, there's, as you pointed out, 1,000 videos to go through, so you'll be very busy if you decide to go through.
Exactly. So, right, I think unless there's anything else from anyone.
No, go for it.
No. Perfect. Thank you very much for your time today, Mike. And as ever, we always end the podcast with one saying, swing well, putt true.
Nice one.
That was a great chat. And I must say, just before we continue having a quick catch up on the chat with Mike, I'm in a different location at the moment, as you can probably tell. And behind me, you can probably see my dog as well. So just to show everyone, the dog's hiding. She's clearly bored with what we've got to say. But bear with me. I'll just sort out the camera again. That was a behind the scenes look. So the one thing that struck me about the conversation with Mike, and I've wanted to get Mike on the podcast for a while, because he's one of the most creative kind of content creators that I've ever kind of met or had the pleasure of watching his stuff on YouTube. And for me, it's probably the clearest definition of audience first content. He produces it. So that's one part of it. And you can tell it's audience first because the way he talks, it's natural. It's produced by him, for him, but also for his subscribers. And he's obviously very successful at that. 140,000 subscribers are clearly engaged with what he's producing and what he's getting out there. And the other element about it as well that I really like, you can tell that Mike enjoys producing that content and likes talking about it. And it's natural, and it's, you know, it's really creative, it's interesting, it's engaging. And all of these points meet up exactly with the guidelines that Google are now starting to spout out in publications about, as they call it, people first content. And for me, for anyone in the industry, if they want a clear look at audience first or people first content, I would always recommend kind of Mike's content, Mike's video content. At the end of the day, yes, it's video, but that's just the format of the content. You could get that in a blog, you could get that in all sorts of graphics, infographics, whatever it may be, and it's still kind of audience first content. And that's the message that I got from it and I took away from it. And I think potentially a takeaway for me is, I think we probably got to do, we don't have to be Mike, we don't have to set up a YouTube channel and eat loads of different foods and stuff, but showing that audience first content more on our website, on our socials, giving examples, I think that's a good way to go, and something that I've learned from Mike.
Yeah, I would agree. I think my takeaways are probably unsurprising. This seems to happen a lot, but I would say I've gone down a slightly different route, in the sense of, I think you nailed one of the things that did come across when Mike was speaking, which was just overall his enjoyment of the process. And a few people that I've spoken to about this pod have said that one thing that does come across is our enjoyment of the process as well, which is good. I think the separation, obviously beyond, like I said, like the different genres, like we're not sat here on our 10th KFC of the week, but we haven't done what Mike has done, which is spent time really understanding how the game works, is probably the best way to describe it. Like, he understands how the algorithm works. He understands what he needs to do to keep the retention rates high. He goes into the analytics to understand how his videos are performing. Whereas up until this point, our play has been record the video, record the podcast, upload it to YouTube, upload it to Spotify, and I hope people listen. Now, thankfully, we've been very lucky with that our listener base is a lot stronger than we had imagined. But I do think it is then the question of, well, how do we take this to where we want the podcast to go? How do we get it in front of more people? How do we share our experiences of starting and scaling an agency wider? And I think some of the secrets to that lie within the analytics and up in the production quality, investing in this, treating it as almost its own client, which we haven't done yet. And I think that's something that I'm now excited to do. And I think a good example of that, or like a micro example of that, is this week we launched our episode with Matt Beswick, co-founder of Era. And it's the first time we've ever used a thumbnail on a YouTube video. And it's not the best, which I've been called out for by both you and Matt. But the point is, like, that is now our best performing episode in October. Now, some of that could be, it's Matt, he's well known within the industry, et cetera. But normally our best performing platform is Spotify, whereas this time around it's been YouTube so far. Obviously, we're only a couple of days in, but it's the first time we put a thumbnail on that video. So going with that and spending time and investing in it and enjoying the process has probably been what I've taken away from that chat with Mike.
Yeah, we definitely, I think we're onto something. I think we've got to keep going and we've got to continually strive to make this podcast better. At the minute, yes, it's a top and tail for this episode with Mike that we're talking about here, but I'm sitting on my sofa, like, trying to speak as quietly as possible because my son's trying to get to sleep upstairs. You know, I'm holding my microphone. You can see it there on the video, and the dog's snoring in the background. Not the most ideal way, but again, needs must. We want to get this episode out next Tuesday. That's why we're recording when we are. And sometimes you got to do what you got to do. And yeah, I think talking to these people, I think this series of episodes that we're getting a guest on, we're asking them loads of questions for selfish reasons. We're learning from it. And there's lots of insights and lots of takeaways that we can get from people. And, you know, on the face of it, what could we learn from a YouTube creator and a copywriter? You know, we've been talking to co-founders and stuff. And I think that's opened my eyes up. We need to be talking to a lot more people in different facets of our industry, but also wider in business, and just talk to people. You know, last week we signed an accountant. Maybe one day we can get the accountants on the podcast and discuss how that affects the agency world and so on. So yeah, plenty of food for thought.
Oh, you'd set yourself up for the perfect teaser and you didn't take it, which is, what is this? The November the 7th, you're heading down to one of our clients to record podcasts with business owners, with C-suite members. So yeah, I agree in absolutely what you're saying, but you just missed the opportunity for the teaser. So a little one there, which is first or second week in November, we'll have probably a series of smaller episodes coming out, and we'll leave it at that for now.
Yeah, I can't believe I'm usually spot on with my segues. You always comment on them, so gutted I missed that. It must be the time that we were recording this.
I can't tell you the last time I saw 8:44 p.m.
I know. Hard work, this co-founder life, isn't it?
Exactly, and I'm pretty sure, just for the record books as well, I think Liverpool are drawing 1-1 with Toulouse. It's a sad state of affairs.
Yeah, on a Thursday night, who would have thought?
Well, let's end it on that.
Yeah, fair.
Nice one.